Ethan Cole never planned to step on the island. He never even knew it existed. It wasn't on any travel map, any satellite image, or any fishing route. It simply appeared one morning as his small rental boat drifted through heavy fog off the coast of Maine. One moment the sea was empty. The next, a dark mass rose out of the mist, like a wound in the ocean. He should have turned back. Anyone would. But curiosity has sharp teeth, and Ethan had always been the kind of man who touched the thing everyone else avoided. The island looked dead from the moment he saw it. No birds, no wind, no smell of salt, only a heavy stillness, like the place had never breathed. He told himself it was just an abandoned patch of land, a strange accident of nature, nothing more. His boat scraped the shore with a hollow thud. When he stepped onto the beach, the sand didn't feel like sand. It felt soft, too soft. He knelt and touched it. The grain stuck to his fingers like ash. Something about it made his skin crawl, but he pushed the feeling down. He had a camera. He had supplies. He had daylight. It would be fine. The moment he walked inland, the air changed. The air changed. Warm at the shore, cold at the tree line. A sudden drop, like stepping into a freezer. The forest was thick and ugly. The trees tall but twisted, with black bark that reflected no light. Sunlight seemed scared to enter. Ethan turned on his flashlight, even though it was still morning. He didn't walk far before he found the first bones. A long spine, perfectly intact, white as fresh snow, but the bone edges were smooth, almost polished. Not like something died there, more like something had been cleaned. He stepped around it carefully. Then he found another. A skull. Human. Jaw missing. Eye sockets facing him like empty questions. His breath shook. "This is a bad place," he whispered. But he kept walking. The deeper he went, the darker it became. His flashlight could barely cut through the shadows. The trees bent inward, making the path narrower and narrower. The air felt heavy, thick, almost oily. Each breath tasted metallic. The silence was worse than noise. It pressed on his ears like invisible hands. 30 minutes in, the forest floor changed. No more dirt, no more leaves, just bones. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Piled between roots scattered along the path, broken, cracked, many with deep bite marks. Some belonged to animals he recognized. Deer, wolves, birds. Others did not. Ethan felt his chest tighten. His heartbeat slowed, then sped up, then slowed again. He wiped sweat from his neck. The shadows felt closer now, too close. Then he saw the tree, a massive one, larger than any he had ever seen. Its roots wrapped around a mound of tangled remains. Human, animal, impossible to tell. Something shifted behind it, not a creature, just darkness moving on its own. Ethan took one step back, and the ground swallowed his footprint. Ethan's heart pounded so hard he heard it in his ears. He stared at that moving darkness near the giant tree. He lifted his flashlight again. The beam trembled. His hand shook. He tried to steady himself. He whispered, "Who's there?" But no voice answered. Just silence. Thick, cold silence. He stepped forward slowly. Every footstep felt wrong. His boots cracked bones beneath him. The smell was everywhere now. Decay, death, old blood, rotten flesh. He gagged. He swallowed hard. He forced himself to move. The mound of tangled remains registered in his mind. It looked like a mass grave, but worse. The bones twisted into each other as though they had grown together. Some skeletons held arms around others. Some animal bones merged with human bones. It was like a single monstrous body made from many. He felt sick. He blinked. The darkness was gone. Just the tree remained. The mound was still. His flashlight cut through the air clearly now. No movement. Yet Ethan knew he was not alone. The forest had watched him. He felt its eyes on his spine, on his neck. He felt its patience. He wanted to turn back to the shore, but every direction seemed wrong. Behind him, the forest was dense. In front of him, it grew darker. To either side, there were no openings. He realized then that he might not find the way out. What did he eat? He swallowed. His throat felt dry. He whispered, "I need to leave." But in his mind, something echoed back. "Where will you go?" The question was not from a person. It came from the island itself. He forced his legs to move. He left the huge tree behind. He followed what he thought was a path, although the forest offered no clear trail. The ground under him was littered with rotten animal bodies now. Half-decayed deer, blackened wolf corpses, birds that looked like feathers and bone mixed into one. Their eyes stared blankly upward, empty sockets full of memory. Ethan stepped around them. He did not touch. He would never touch. His flashlight felt weaker, as though its battery drained faster here. The darkness swallowed the edges of the beam. He sweated and trembled. He heard whispering. Soft, low voices. Not one voice, but many. He could not tell where they came from. Sometimes they sounded like children, sometimes like men, sometimes like gasps. He stopped and waited. He held his breath. The voices did not stop. They circled him. He felt like he was in the center of a ring of shadows. A sudden breeze moved through the trees, but it brought no sound of leaves. It just stirred the air. The smell of rot became stronger. The breeze carried it to his nose, and something else, a faint, sweet smell like cleaning fluid. He cringed. It made him dizzy. Ethan leaned on a tree trunk, trying to steady himself. He closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, he saw bodies lying on the ground, not just skeletons, full corpses, freshly dead. Their skin was gray, slimy, and cold. Their mouths hung open. Their eyes were empty holes. He knew they had died here. He knew someone trapped them. He forced himself to step past them. His boots made wet sounds. He felt like the dead watched him move. He felt like they judged him. The forest grew darker still. The sun seemed afraid to shine. He glanced up. He saw no sky, just black branches stretching overhead, blotting out everything. Ethan realized he may never leave this island. His chest constricted with fear, and for the first time he wondered, what was going to become of him here? Ethan kept walking, but every step felt heavier than the last. The forest pressed in on him from all sides. The darkness was thicker now, almost like smoke. His flashlight flickered again. He tapped it with his palm. It stayed on, but its beam was weak and shaky. He felt as if the island wanted him blind. He looked over his shoulder. Nothing. No figure. No movement. Yet the feeling of being watched never left him. It clung to him like cold hands on his back. He tried to breathe slowly, but each breath trembled. Ahead of him was an old wooden fence broken in many places. The wood was blackened and soft, as if it had been burned long ago. Ethan stepped closer. On the other side of the fence, he saw metal cages, dozens of them. Some were small, some large, all were rusted. All were open, all were empty. He walked slowly between them. The cages smelled like dried blood and old wet soil. He touched one gently. The metal felt warm. He pulled his hand back instantly. It made no sense. Nothing on this island should feel warm. Farther ahead, he saw something worse, a pile of clothing. Shirts, jackets, children's sweaters, shoes, backpacks. They were molded, torn, and dirty, but still recognizable as belonging to real people. Families maybe, campers, explorers, people who made the same mistake he did. Ethan shivered. He knelt and picked up a small shoe. The sole was worn out. It belonged to a child who never left this island. A sudden sound rang through the trees. A sharp crack like a branch breaking under heavy weight. Ethan spun around. His flashlight beam jumped wildly. He saw nothing. Another crack, then another. They came from different directions. His breath became short and fast. He backed away slowly. His foot hit something soft. He looked down. His boot rested on a dead boar, its body bloated, ribs poking through torn flesh. Flies buzzed. Maggots crawled. Ethan stepped away with disgust. The forest smell hit him again. Thick rot, old blood, wet fur, and something strangely metallic. Then he heard footsteps, slow, dragging footsteps. Not animal footsteps, human footsteps. Ethan froze. He didn't dare turn around. He didn't dare breathe. The footsteps came closer. Leaves crunched softly. The sound was calm, patient, almost curious. He finally forced himself to look. Nothing. No person. No creature. Only darkness shifting between the trees. His flashlight flickered once, twice, and went out completely. Panic hit him like a wave. He tapped the flashlight again and again. No light. He was alone in complete darkness, deeper than anything he had known in his life. He held his breath. The whispering voices returned, surrounding him, circling him, speaking words he could not understand. He felt something brush against his arm, soft, cold, and wet. He stumbled backward. He tripped over another body. He fell on the ground, his hands sinking into damp soil that felt almost alive. He scrambled to his feet and ran, not knowing where. not knowing if he ran toward safety or into more danger. He only knew he had to move. But the deeper he ran, the more the island seemed to change around him. The trees grew closer, the path twisted, the air became thicker. Ethan realized with horror that the island wasn't just trapping him physically. It was starting to trap his mind. Ethan slowed down only when his legs felt like they might collapse under him. He leaned against a tree, gasping for air. His heart pounded so loudly, it felt like the whole forest could hear it. Sweat dripped down his face even though the air was icy cold. He wiped his forehead and looked around. Everything was silent now. Too silent. The forest felt like it was holding its breath. His flashlight was dead, but the faint gray light of early evening slipped through the branches. He could see just enough to move. He forced himself to walk. He needed higher ground, somewhere open, somewhere less suffocating than this forest. After a few minutes, the trees thinned. Ethan stepped into a small clearing. At first he felt relief. Open space, finally. But when he looked closer, the relief drained from his body. In the center of the clearing stood a giant wooden pole, carved with deep symbols. Harsh, sharp markings, some fresh, some old, all carved by human hands. Ropes hung from the pole. Thick ropes, tangled ropes. Ropes that looked like they once held people. Ethan stepped back instinctively. The ground around the pole was covered with bones, human bones mixed with animal remains. Skulls cracked open, ribs scattered, jawbones buried in moss. Some bones were fresh, some were turning to dust. But all of them were piled in a way that made no sense, as if someone had arranged them intentionally. Ethan's skin crawled. He covered his mouth to stop a cry from escaping. Something about the clearing felt wrong in a deeper way, a way he couldn't understand. He felt pressure on his chest like invisible hands pushing him forward. For a moment, he had a terrible thought. The island wants me here. But he corrected himself immediately. No, the island wants no one. This place wasn't waiting for him. It didn't care. It simply destroyed whatever came near it. He turned to leave and froze. All around him, tied between the trees, were strings made of hair. Long strands, knotted together, stretched like traps or warnings. Some black, some gray, some blonde, human hair. Ethan carefully stepped around them, afraid they might break, afraid they might make noise. As he moved, he heard something behind him, a low, creaking sound. He turned slowly. The wooden pole had shifted. It leaned ever so slightly toward him. The rope swayed gently, though there was no wind. Ethan stared, terrified, unable to make sense of what he saw. Then he heard whispering again, but this time it was clearer, closer, like someone standing inches from his ear. "Don't! Turn! Back!" Ethan stumbled away, shaking, nearly tripping over the bones. The whispers grew louder, overlapping, fast, desperate. He covered his ears and squeezed his eyes shut. It didn't help. The voices were inside his head now, vibrating through his skull. He ran again. Branches cut his skin. Thorns tore his clothes. His breath was ragged, but he didn't stop. Not even when he saw a figure ahead, a tall, twisted shadow standing between the trees. He blinked. Gone. He kept running. But the forest had changed again. The trees were different. The ground was different. And Ethan suddenly realized something that made his blood freeze. He wasn't sure if the island was shifting, or if he was. Ethan didn't know how long he had been running. Minutes, hours. Time felt broken on this island. The forest around him kept twisting, stretching, squeezing. Paths he thought he recognized vanished behind him. New ones appeared, leading in directions that felt wrong. Even the trees seemed to breathe now, their bark rising and falling like slow, tired lungs. He slowed to a walk, trembling, his body aching with exhaustion. His throat burned. His vision blurred at the edges. He needed water, but he didn't dare drink from anything here. Every part of this island felt poisonous. Then he saw something ahead, a house. A small wooden cabin stood just a few yards away, leaning slightly to one side, as if tired of standing. Its windows were cracked, covered with dirt and moss. The door hung open. Ethan stared at it, unable to believe his eyes. A shelter, a man-made structure. Maybe someone lived here long ago. Maybe someone still did. He stepped closer carefully, every muscle tense. The cabin smelled strange. like dust, smoke, and old memories. Ethan pushed the door open with one finger, and it creaked loudly. He froze, waiting. Nothing moved inside. He entered slowly. The room was small. One bed, one table, a shelf with jars filled with dark, dried things he couldn't identify. And in the center of the room on the floor was a single notebook. Ethan picked it up with shaking hands. The cover was cracked leather. The pages inside were stained with time and humidity. But the handwriting was clear enough to read. If you are reading this, then you made the same mistake. I did. Ethan's breath caught in his chest. This island does not hunt you. It changes you. It rots your sense of reality. It takes your memories first, then your reason, then your body. Ethan swallowed hard. His hands trembled so badly he could barely keep reading. I tried to leave. I walked for days. But every path led me back here. The island moves, or I move. I can't tell anymore. Ethan turned the page. I hear voices. They pretend to warn me, but they only pull me deeper. My name is... The sentence ended suddenly. The rest of the page was scratched out violently, as if someone tried to erase themselves. Ethan felt cold all over. He backed away from the notebook. His mind started spinning. Was the writer still alive? Did they die here? Did the island keep them? He moved to the window to get air, but when he looked outside, the forest had changed again. The trees were arranged in a perfect circle around the cabin, like they were watching it, watching him. A sharp pain hit Ethan's head. He grabbed it with both hands. Viens. The whispers returned, louder than ever, clearer now. He could almost understand them. Stay, don't fight, don't leave. He squeezed his eyes shut and screamed, but the voices didn't stop. They slipped through him like cold water. He stumbled backward into the cabin's wall. A memory flickered in his mind, his childhood home, his mother's face, sunlight on a normal day. But the images were fading, melting, slipping away. The island was taking them. Ethan gasped in terror. It wasn't just trapping him, it was rewriting him. Ethan pressed his palms against his head as the voices kept drilling into his mind. They repeated the same soft, cold command, stay. He stumbled out of the cabin, desperate to breathe, desperate to escape before the island erased the last pieces of who he was. But the forest greeted him with a new shape, darker, thicker, almost alive. The trees now leaned inward, forming a narrow path. Ethan didn't trust it, but it was the only direction open. Everywhere else, the branches formed walls, sharp like claws. The forest was funneling him somewhere. He stepped forward because he had no choice. The path grew tighter the farther he walked. The air felt heavier. His clothes stuck to his skin, sweat mixed with dirt. His heartbeat slowed as if his body was adjusting to the island's strange rhythm. He walked faster, hoping the path would lead to the shore. But after a few minutes, he smelled something familiar. A rot. Strong rot. Strong rot. The stench hit him so hard he gagged. He pushed through the last row of trees and stepped into another clearing. This one was larger and worse. Hundreds of bones formed a giant circle around a stone pit. Some bones were tiny, others massive. Human skulls stared at him from under layers of moss. Dead animals lay half-buried, their faces frozen in fear, and in the center of the circle something moved slowly, swaying back and forth like a shadow caught in wind that didn't exist. Ethan froze. It wasn't a creature. It wasn't human. It was a shape, long and thin, almost like smoke, but with weight to it. Its form stretched, collapsed, stretched again. As it shifted, the whispering voices rose, louder, faster, more urgent. Ethan's ears rang. He covered them, but the voices slid right through his fingers. You've seen enough. You cannot leave. Forget. 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 Ethan backed away, but the forest behind him closed instantly, trees twisting together like ropes. He was trapped in the clearing. The shadow drifted closer. Ethan tried to scream, but his voice broke. It hovered inches from him. Cold air wrapped around his neck, his arms, his chest. He felt pressure, like invisible hands tightening. He could barely breathe. Images flashed in his mind. The boat he came on, the sunlight on the water, his friends laughing, his apartment, his life. And each image faded, washed away like chalk under rain. He tried to hold on to something, anything, but it all slipped out of his grasp. The shadow leaned closer. Ethan felt something enter him, a cold thread weaving through his thoughts. The whispering voices became one single voice, deep and calm. You belong here now. Ethan dropped to his knees. His body felt heavy, sinking into the soil. His heartbeat slowed until it matched the faint pulsing of the ground beneath him. He tried to remember his name. Nothing came. He lifted his head weakly and looked at the shadow. It no longer looked like a monster. It looked like a part of him. And then the truth finally hit him. No one ever escaped this island, not because they were trapped, but because the island took their identity, piece by piece, until they became another silent figure, wandering its dark paths forever. Ethan's last thought, the last one that truly belonged to him, was simple, terrified and fading. I should never have come here. After that, the island finished its work, and Ethan became just another whisper in the dark. The island stayed silent for a long time after Ethan disappeared into its darkness. The forest stopped moving. The shadows returned to their usual places. The air settled into that cold, breathless stillness the island preferred. It was as if nothing had happened, as if Ethan had never stepped foot there. But the island never stayed forgotten for long. Weeks later, a small boat approached the same shore where Ethan once landed. Two people stood inside it, a young couple, Mia and Daniel, both amateur explorers who loved searching for abandoned places and off-the-map locations. They had found rumors of an unmarked island in an old fisherman's journal. The man who wrote it had called it the Island of Fading Things. They thought the name was poetic, interesting, a challenge. They expected loneliness. They expected danger. They expected beauty. They did not expect silence so thick it felt alive. As soon as their boat touched the sand, Mia frowned. "It feels wrong," she said softly. "Like the place is empty in the wrong way." Daniel laughed lightly and took her hand. "It's just new. That's what we wanted, right?" But the island had already noticed them. They walked inland, following a trail between tall trees. Their footsteps crunched over dead leaves. Birds did not sing. Bugs did not hum. Nothing moved except the wind, or what they hoped was wind. The deeper they walked, the darker the forest became. Sunlight struggled through the branches, weak and thin. Mia squeezed Daniel's arm. "Do you hear something?" she whispered. He stopped, listened. Very faintly, from the distance they heard murmuring, like low voices, like many people whispering at the same time. Daniel told himself it was the ocean or the wind through the trees, but the sound wasn't soft. It wasn't natural. It was rhythmic, repeating, almost like chanting. They walked faster now. Soon they reached the old wooden fence Ethan once found. Daniel crouched and touched one of the burned planks. It crumbled under his fingers like ash. Mia pointed at the cages with a shaking hand. "What were they keeping?" she whispered. Daniel didn't answer. He didn't want to know. Then Mia noticed something half buried in the dirt. She knelt down and brushed away the soil. A backpack, torn, molded. She opened it. Inside was a notebook. The leather cover felt familiar, too familiar. Mia opened it to the first page and her breath caught. It read, "If you are reading this, then you made the same mistake I did." And the rest of the notebook was filled with frantic handwriting, pages ripping, words scratched, sentences unfinished. At the end, there was a final entry written in shaky letters. My name. My name was Ethan. Mia dropped the notebook instantly. Daniel backed away, horrified. "We need to go. Now. One." But when they turned around, the forest behind them had changed. The path they came from was gone. The trees stood in perfect lines, blocking every way out. The island had closed, choosing them, claiming them. And far behind the trees, a whisper rose, one they didn't understand yet, or sound yet. But soon they would. Mia and Daniel started to run. They didn't know where, anywhere away from the whispering voices that now echoed through the forest like breath behind their ears. But every direction felt the same. Every tree looked the same. Every step made the forest darker. Daniel held Mia's hand tightly, dragging her forward, refusing to stop. The whispers grew louder, not angry, not screaming, just patient, calm, inviting. Mia felt something strange, a pressure in her head, like someone pushing a memory out of her skull to make room for something else. She shook her head violently. "Daniel, I don't feel right." "I know," he said, panting. "Just keep moving. Don't listen to anything." But it was impossible not to listen. Soon they reached a place Ethan had once seen. The clearing with the tall wooden pole, the rope swaying without wind, the bones scattered like pale, forgotten leaves. Mia covered her mouth and sobbed. Daniel grabbed her shoulders and pulled her away from the center. "We're going around it," he said firmly. But as they moved, Mia froze. Something stood behind the pole, a figure, tall, still, watching. Its shape wavered, like a shadow painted on smoke. Daniel didn't see it until it slid forward. Without footsteps, without sound, Mia screamed, and Daniel dragged her into the trees, deeper into the forest. Branches sliced their skin. Thorns ripped their clothes. They ran blindly, tears mixing with sweat. They burst into an old clearing with a crooked wooden cabin. Daniel recognized it from the notebook's description. "That's where he stayed," he whispered. Mia shook her head rapidly. No, I don't want to go in there." But the forest behind them shifted, closing its walls of branches again. No choice remained. They stepped inside. The cabin looked exactly like it did in Ethan's time. One bed, a table, jars on shelves. Only one thing was new. The silhouette stepped forward. It wasn't a creature. It wasn't a ghost. It was a person, or what was left of one. Its face was pale and cracked like old plaster. Its eyes hollow, its clothes rotten, its movements slow, confused, broken. And around its neck, hanging by a thin rope, was the same notebook Mia had dropped earlier. Mia whispered the name even though she didn't know how she knew it. "Ethan?" The figure twitched, as if the name was a distant sound from another life. Daniel grabbed Mia's wrist. "We're leaving, now." They backed out of the cabin, but the forest was already moving again. The trees stretched inward, their branches bending down like arms. The ground pulsed under their feet. The air turned icy. The shadow figure, the one from the pit, rose behind the trees. 3 of them, 5, 10, dozens. All silent, all watching. Daniel screamed for Mia to run, but the island had already chosen its ending. The whispers grew louder until they felt like thoughts inside their own heads. "Forget. You forget. I'll forget. I'll forget." Yeah, felt her memories slip first. Her house, her job, her childhood, all fading into darkness. Daniel tried to hold on to his name, but even that began to crumble. The forest dimmed. The sky darkened. And in the end, Mia and Daniel did not die. They simply stopped being who they were. 2 more silent souls for the island. 2 more shadows drifting among the trees. 2 more whispers added to the endless chorus that filled the darkness day and night. The island stayed quiet again, waiting for nothing, wanting nothing, but always ready to erase whoever stepped on its soil next.